you see in those good old days? Well, it is also a phrase that I gathered growing up in Sussex College. That poem reads, "My heart lifts up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began. So is it now. I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is father of the man. I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety." A key sentence there is, the child is the father of the man. Some researchers, some commentators, and some Wordsworth students have posited that William Wordsworth was indicating through that particular line, the child is the father of the man, the unchanging nature of the human being as he or she goes through the life cycle. What we learn in childhood remains with us throughout our lives. And of course, who are we, or who in the, well, let me take that. And of course, who is in adulthood is the product of those habits, those manners, and that behavior pattern we learned when we were growing up. And we learned those things that make us who we are today in two main environments. Our childhood homes of father and mother, brothers and sisters, grandpa and grandma, and a structured environment in which we learned to read and write, we learned to count, we learned to think critically. Of the two, however, the home environment is the place par excellence that a solid foundation is laid. Parenting is thus not an easy task. In fact, parenting remains the only school without a curriculum or syllabus or textbooks. Parenting entails handing down knowledge, playing role model, and being there as much as possible for your child. And because what we learn in our formative years, put that between birth and age 12, remain with us throughout our lives. Every father or mother endeavors to do their best for their offspring, some doing more, others doing less. Parenting in the home makes parents the first contact and the last line of defense in the human growth and development process. The late Pope John Paul II, in his encyclical Familiaris Consortio, number 39, that talks about the family, says, quote, "The life of the family as instrumental in forming the future," end of quote, "of every child, because it is, quote, in the family that children learn the basic skills of relating to others," end of quote. It is in the family, Pope John Paul II writes further, that children, quote, learn hospitality and ways to deal with life's challenges. They learn respect for self and respect for others. They learn the value of people within and outside their family. They develop ways of dealing with differences, end of quote. In fact, some dictionaries and reference books have referred to parenting as, quote, act of being or acting as a mother or father to someone, end of quote, which of in itself has become, quote, the process of promoting and supporting. Neither is parenting a one-size-fits-all. Parenting is as different in different parts of the world and in different cultures as the geographic presentations and regions of the world, Africa included, of course. It is in our hope that we will hear from people from across the continent, that is Africa, as we discuss this Members' Choice topic on this second Sunday of September. Divine, I'm going to hand over the microphone to you. My grandson just came in making some noise, but then parenting, that is what it all takes. Parenting is what we are discussing. Divine, over to you to ask the first question.
Well, thank you so much, Asoni Fankemleke. I think that grandson coming in while you are on the air sets the perfect scenario for this broadcast. After all, I'm today part of the feast, so we are glad to hear them, just as long as they don't become louder than you at the microphone. Thank you.
Yes, welcome. He was so curious, he wanted to see what Grandpa was doing. He's now gone out.
Okay, that's beautiful. It seems that we have some people on the line already. Good afternoon. This is Africaonline. We are on air every Sunday, 3 p.m. That's in Washington, D.C. We call that Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. in West and Central Africa, 9 p.m. in Southern Africa. Let's hear from those who are on the line now. Good afternoon to you. anybody on the line to share experiences with us or ask questions? It looks like the people on the line are sort of listening for now. So let's share. Let's share experiences. I'm a parent myself, and I just became a grandparent about 2 weeks ago with my daughter Hedwig in Boya, giving birth to a baby girl. So I am going to be asking Jonathan Kebler for a lot of advice. He being a grandpa and also an older parent than I am. So that's how we will share experiences today. Let's see, Asong, you talked about the write-up by Pope John Paul. I mean, it couldn't have been better said. I mean, it's the perfect mantra, the slate, or the blueprint from where to think or act or share ideas or do great parenting. And I paid great attention to what you brought in from the Pope. Now, would you say parents in Africa would have different challenges from those in Europe and the United States? And if yes, maybe in what ways?
Well, the differences are that in the West, because of culture, the children can challenge their parents and say, no, daddy, that is not how I see it. But back in Africa, the child does not talk back to the adult. And so the adult is like the man in the house, the only voice that has to make decisions, that has to say what X, Y, and Z do, and so on and so forth. And until children get up to adolescence, they hardly ever say anything back to their parents. But out in the West, it's different. The children can challenge their parents' authority and so on and so forth. But then we are developing them, we are molding them to grow up and be good citizens, good family members, and good individuals. Whatever it is, the role of a father, that is, I'm repeating what I said there, a mother must be a role model to their children. Because if you do it the wrong way, they pick it up between 0 and 12 years old, and that remains with them. And say, after all, this is how my father or my mother used to do it. And it remains with them. And you, as they say, as Mikom Baraka says, a bended tree can no longer be straightened. So that is the way I can put it at this time.
I mean, you are completely right, Asong. Lots of parents have moved from Africa with their children, and here they find a lot of difficulty in relating with their children. You begin to see this new attitudes from the child, especially when they become teenagers, and I've had that experience. When they become teenagers, they begin to assert the independence as they are taught in school. You just cannot do to the child what you would do in Africa. So it sometimes you have conflict. Sometimes it's not a very smooth ride. When parents who move from out of Africa come here, they have now to begin to adapt to the new ways. Children are learning new things. Back in Africa, you could not talk to your dad looking into his eyes, but here the culture is different. In the United States and Europe, if you talk looking elsewhere, they think you are lying. So these are some of the things. We had some interactive session at the community in Montgomery County of Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Prince George's County. And this was the community meeting the police officers, especially immigrants. I was explaining to them these cultural differences, which in fact are inherited or imported from home. If you pulled an African in a traffic stop, and he's talking to you, not looking into your eyes, you, the police officer, could mistake that for lying, which is not the case. They were just not raised to talk and look into the eyes of somebody in authority. So you have all these things. Children don't have to cross their leg here in front of their back in Africa, in front of their parents in Africa. Here it's perfectly acceptable. So you have all these discrepancies, which sometimes bring a situation of conflict. Now, let me ask you a question, Hassan. When it comes to single parenting, a single dad or a single mom having to play this role as outlined by the Pope, do you think it's even more challenging?
Indeed, Divine, it is absolutely very challenging when it comes down to a single parent. You know, back in the continent, we have single parents, yes, but it takes the village to raise the child. The African community knows that this is actually child, and that they give as much support as possible. But out here, because of some cultural things that happen, and because of the fear of somebody doing bad to your child, the community is no longer in charge of raising the child. So it is your sole responsibility. And so a single parent faces more challenges than the family, the husband and wife family, when they are raising children. The single parent tends to begin to ask him or herself, what do I do if I have to go to the store? My child is less than 5 years old. I can't leave him or her in the house. You must take that child with you to the store. And then, of course, you get to the store, you have the inconvenience of pushing the cart, you have the inconvenience of selecting whatever you went to the store to buy. And those challenges are just so many that single parents have to face. But then, it could be by choice, or it could have been forced on them by the society in which they live. So what do? We just have to do the best, juggle the balls, and be able to not drop any, because if we drop, we may end up dropping by the child, who will get hurt or who may go the wrong way. Well, in the West, has become a matter of the babysitter, where mother and father are out working, or why mother is out working because she's a single parent, or why father is out working because he's a single parent. Whatever it is a big, big challenge for parents, whether single or married. Divine?
This is Africaonline coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and we are live on YouTube and Facebook, and our IT head is Ozuma Uche. And not yet a parent, probably she'll have a few things to say as a parent to be. I mean, all of us aspire to be parents one day. If you are not yet one, you may soon be. So we'll probably hear what Uzo thinks as a young woman who one day will be a parent. Now, you raised some very important things, ideas or issues in your remarks there, our song. You take, for example, in the United States and Europe, where people are working virtually 24 hours, which isn't the same thing in Africa. So these are some of the problems that are real. It's not easy having to be the role model and at the same time maybe having to do two jobs at a time to make ends meet. Now, as long as you're a granddad, before I ask you the question, maybe let me see if somebody's on the line. Good afternoon. Someone on the line with a question or comment? Anybody with a comment or question on parenting? Maybe not yet. Now, as I told you, I've been learning a lot from you as a young grandpa. Usually, grandparents are accused of spoiling their grandchildren. You probably spoiled yours, did you?
No, I grew up in a community where spanking was a rule of kind of rule, because if you were not spanked, it means you were doing all the right things, and no child growing up does all the right things. But in this society in which we live these days, you cannot spank. You get here, as you were saying in your own early comments, that certain things cannot be done anymore because we have to adapt to the reality of our new environment and our new home. So I try my best to use as much how do I put it? I try to be as soft as I can, but making sure that the rules and the regulations are adhered to. When I came here, my youngest child was 7, but he adapted quickly and grew up remembering what he learned from home, and he was able to stick by the rules of the game and grow up that way. But now that I'm beginning to have grandchildren, and there are 4 of them already, I try to, as much as possible, be fair in the treatment I give to them. I tell them this is right, this is wrong. You don't do this, you don't do that, because if you do it, it will not be acceptable in the community when you grow up. So please stick to this, and please stay by the rules set out for you as early as you start talking and walking about.
This is Africaonline, and it's getting really interesting now. So maybe now I was listening to this video clip that was posted in our chat room, the value of no. And I thought that was very deep. That was some deep thinking there.
Yes.
Do you think that parents sometimes spoil their children because they want to avoid the word no in this business of parenting?
Unfortunately, yes, because you think that by saying no, you are making the child feel bad. But it is not to everything a child asks that you say yes, especially in this community in which we live. You take the child to the store, you go shopping, and the child wants A, B, C, D, Z, E, F, and so on, and you say yes, 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 yes. You may end up buying what the child doesn't even need and will not need in the next 4 or 5 years. So it's good to learn to say no when you mean no. Don't say no now and then change your mind and say, oh, yes, that was a mistake. So that is what we should do. No is not hurting the child. No is teaching the child to know that it is not every day that we say yes to them. It is not every day that we say, okay, this toy is the one you have to use because you chose it. No, it's good to say no at times so that the child learns to know that growing up, there are moments in life that everything will not be positive, that everything will not be yes. So that is what I can say on that point.
Africaonline, live from Washington, D.C. metropolis. It seems somebody just came on. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's Celeste Abongwa from Minnesota.
Hello, Mr. Abongwa from the Twin Cities.
Yes, I'm on.
Thank
Very
you for
good.
coming in. Certainly you have a comment or a question about parenting. Well, we have no specialists. We are all specialists on this one because we are either all parents or we intend to be parents someday.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm a parent myself with two boys, 9 and 8 years old, raising them here in the Twin Cities. So I was calling to listen to those that have been, on this very important job, or the most important job on earth, as I call it, for a little longer to kind of learn. I've read most of the postings during the week with great interest and satisfaction from a different angle, and especially growing up in Cameroon and then having kids here in the U.S. Has been expressed exhaustively in the forum. Most of the things are a little different. Some of the things are the same, and kids are going to be kids. So I was really coming to listen and really learn. At this point, I have no specific comment or something to add at this point. I'm just kind of joining to learn from the others on the phone.
Yes, but what have been your experiences as a young parent? You have an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old. At least you've had some things that you've experienced which you may want to share with others who want to learn like you've learned.
Yes, it's amazing, although they are just 13 months apart, how different kids are. Two of them are born in the same home, of the same parents, growing in the same home, going to the same school, but they are so different in their ways. So realizing that the approach, or let me say the reaction for one is different than the other, even if the information that is given is the same. So what I've really learned from that is, most people, I think they've correctly written about this, is trying to be close to your kids, understanding your kids, trying to make sure that they can be open to discuss certain things with you. And one of my greatest fears is honestly in the U.S. or the Western world at large, the exposure of kids to drugs or things like that. Things that generally going to school or growing up in Cameroon, we had other challenges. So that was not really one of them. And that is the most, prevalent challenge or fear that I have. So I am trying to be as close to them as I can. Knowing that, shielding them, once you go to school, they're in school. But if we are not very open to them for them to be comfortable to come and discuss certain things with us, we might not know, or if we know, it might be too late. So that is what I try to do, doing homework every evening with them, giving them right. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. No, thank you very much for that contribution. Divine asked an earlier question about saying no to your child. Have you had the opportunity to say no to them at one point because you think that what they want is not what is right for them at this time?
Yes. That I was listening to that, and I came in a little bit late. Specifically on that point. So there was it's about a couple of years ago now. Like I said, they are 8 or 9 years old, and I overheard them speaking. The younger one was asking the older one, "Why is it that Daddy always says no?"
That was a good one.
Yeah, why is it that Daddy always says no? So what I mean, they know this and we know this, and my wife and I have reacted now differently, so they will generally go to her, right? And they will sometimes they'll have their way with her more than they can have with me, and they keep the pick that up, and so they were using that, going to my wife, asking certain things that I told them no, and then we discuss, okay, when they come, if one person says no, don't ask the other person. When they come to ask, that's the first follow-up question. Did you ask your mom? What did you say? So that's how we have tried to have the consistency of saying no. Yes, granted, when kids are younger, they may think that saying no is that the parents don't love them, but we really have to try not to fall in that trap. We have to be firm with our no, because that is the better way to bring them up. Life is not just about, we don't generally have everything that we want, and trying to instill that to them at a younger age, knowing that there will be some requests and some of them will be denied. So that's what we're trying to do.
Great points, Mr. Abongwa. Divine, are you there? Maybe you have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Abongwa.
Yes. Uzu is indicating from Houston, Texas, that she has a comment to make. But before we get to Uzu Ozuma, the question I have for Mr. Abongwa, when you say we, I'm assuming you mean you and your wife. Now, are there times that you have one of your children coming to you to ask for something, or going to your wife because the perception is that you may be too tough or she may be too tough? Question number one. Number two, are there times that you find you and your wife on different frequencies as to how to handle certain things?
The answer to both questions are actually yes. Yes, the kids feel, and we both of us, my wife and I, we know that she is softer, or she would more or less say no, say yes than no. And the kids figured that out by the time, they were 3 years of age, kind of figured that already. So they were, and one of the other things was that, the time I was working more, an interaction that they had a tendency to do with their mom just more than with me. And it became compounded that even the less interaction that I had with them, from their perspective, they were hearing more no's than yes, if any, at least what they thought. So definitely they had a tendency, even to today, going to their mom to ask for things that they would not even ask me. Now, with regards to being on different frequencies, yes, we do that, and we've had that portion. What is important is never for that to be expressed in any way, shape, or form in front of the kids. Even if either my wife or I realize that the first answer from one person might not have been the best one, we consistently agree on that response that the first person gives the kid. We don't take it back. I mean, unless it's something that's going to be, very catastrophic. But what are they asking for at this age? They want to eat ice cream. They want to eat the
maybe an iPad. Maybe an iPad.
Exactly. So that is a good one, because just last Christmas. They asked for. Don't ask me the version, Xbox whatever version. I don't follow those things. But what I told them was like, hey, you guys already have this particular console. It's working. You can have other games. It's just been, I think, like for 8 months. It will not be changing from one console to a different one just because a newer one comes to the market. And they did not like it. And honestly, my wife and I had a discussion on particular example, and she really felt like, we should get it. So we finally said, no, we got the more games, and hey, they are playing with it and they're just fine. So.
Well, let's see. I think you have quite some interesting things there, experiences there as a young parent. I mean, you are children, that's what I mean by young parent. Let's hold it there. Don't go away. Let's see who else came on. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Divine. This is Bonnie. How are you today?
Pretty good. Bonnie, tell me, the way you are raising your children in the United States, is it the same way your parents raised you? What's the difference between the two?
In fact, I had wanted to do it the way my parents did, but for several reasons, I was unable because of some crazy laws in this country. You can do this, you cannot do that, you can't even spank your kid, and a whole lot of other things. And I was raised differently, but I tried. At least I did about 80% of what my parents did. I wish I could have done 100%. That would have been wonderful.
Are there times, Bonnie, that you've had to have different opinions as to how to respond to your children's demand? I know that your children are... How old are your children now, Bonnie?
20, 18, and 14. It was not easy thing. The older they get, the more difficult it gets, because by then they can argue, and sometimes strong argument, telling you what to do and why not to do what you want to do. In fact, not my son, my second son happened to be, doing very well in school. He's in high school science and tech. Ended up with a 4.5 GPA, graduated. And a day after the graduation, he met me and said, "Congratulations, Dad." I said, "What happened?" He said, go outside and take a look at your car." And I thought somebody smashed my car. And the van, he couldn't believe it. I rushed out. When I get there, I said, "No, nothing. My car is where it is." He said, "No, look at the glass behind it. There's something there." Guess what I saw there? Parent of a soldier. How can this guy that you cannot? This is what I'm talking about. You cannot just go ahead and try to micromanage yourself. I believe it's one parent at a time. You cannot be parenting yourself. He said that, but you told us as long as we do good in school, you can only support whatever we want to do. That you want to join the U.S. Army. I say, okay, go ahead. Fine. That's I don't want to hold too long. That's something else. I wouldn't have done without having a thorough discussion with my parents.
Now, question to Mr. Bongo. Mr. Bongo, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And any parent on the line can answer this question. At what point is it motivating a child to do something? That's by giving the child something, and at what point does it become bribery? So teaching the child to take bribe before doing something.
Oh, that's a very interesting one. Now, we really try to instill on our kids that nothing comes from the sky. You have to be determined. You have to work, and then you will earn something, right? So it now becomes a fine line. For example, just today, before coming on this call, I got back and I was rushing to get here, and I told them again, my kids, also an Aiden are 8 and 9. So I'm like, if you do your laundry, I'm like, okay, go bring down your laundry basket and go to the laundry room, separate the whites from the dark ones and stuff. And if you do that really good, because what did they ask me? They asked me for ice cream. I'm like, no, you have to do that first. And after that, we can talk about the ice cream. I just want to we can talk about the ice cream. So wait, I'm going to a call right now. Do what you have to do, and we'll talk later. So go back to your question. Is this taking me back to Cameroon or to Africa? Things like that, I, growing up as a child, would just do it knowing that it is something that children do. I will not even expect any kind of reward from my parents. I mean, if I even thought about that, there might be implications just for thinking without even airing it out. Now, here, we have to be careful that it's not everything that the child does that we give a reward to. And I struggle with that myself. That's a very tough question, because it becomes, oh, I do anything, I'm expecting the parent to do this. So it's now bribing, it's not earning. So I really don't know honestly how to draw the line between bribery or actually earning a reward for something that is done right and done correctly by the child. Maybe the others can chime in.
Yes, Divine, I think Uzo has been waiting on the line, and maybe you want her to come in with
yes, definitely.
her opinion or her question. So I think we go to her, then we can come back to follow up on Mr. Bongwa's response.
Hello, everyone. Excuse me.
Good afternoon,
Hello,
Lady
good
Uzo.
afternoon.
I hope the waters have drained.
Yeah,
I hope the waters have drained.
Mostly. I think mostly everywhere, as kind of the water has receded. We thank everyone for their prayers and their concern. Houston's going to be just fine. I was listening to Mr. Celestin and also Mr. Bonnie, and I just want to say, I mean, as somebody who is not that far off from, having been a young adult, bribery part, I don't think that should be necessarily looked at as a bad thing. What I mean by that is, I'm grateful like I'm an aunt, so I have two. They're kind of like my children. My sister has a son and daughter, so I have a niece and nephew, and they come every summer and spend the summer with us down here in Houston. So when they're here, there's still that aspect of being a parent to them, making sure they brush their teeth, they shower, they do the things they're supposed to do as if they were at home. So it's not the aspect of them coming here and just hands off. They don't have to stick to their regular routine. I think you, as a parent or even as an auntie or as an uncle, you still have to do that, the incentive aspect. So while they were here this summer, I had all these activities planned, but I was like, basically, there are going to be rewards to how well you guys behave this summer. So in the aspect of, are you keeping your rooms clean? Are you putting stuff up instead of when you're playing and making a mess of everywhere? Are you going to? So with those things, yes, I was rewarding them with, like, let's say I would give them $1 for doing it for that day, or I would take them for ice cream. But after a while, it became routine, and I didn't have to do that because they actually understood what the rules were and did it anyway. So it's also an aspect of creating that responsibility by demanding the expectation of that every day. So knowing what is expected of them every day, and then making sure you reinforce that. And I'm not saying you have to hit your children to get them to comply. I think hitting sends the wrong negative message. I think, however, if you create something to where if they behave themselves, this is the reward for that. They'll be able to follow you to the store. Because I don't believe in if a child has a tantrum, you take them and just try to please their every well, that does not create for a better adult. It creates for a very spoilt human being, a very self-absorbed human being. So when you're raising your children, you have to take into account, are you hitting them? Because hitting after a while is not going to send the same it's not going to send the same reinforcement of positive reinforcement you're trying to get them to understand. If you actually are creating incentives and actually rewarding good behavior, then I think you'll get a positive overall result.
That's exactly the controversy here. And Uzu, hold it there. I'm going to ask other parents to react to you if Bonnie is on the line or Mr. Bonga. Both of you are still on the line, I guess.
Yes, we are.
All right. Now, you heard Uzu saying, talking about incentives and then routine. Now, couldn't this routine, the word routine, become a double-edged sword in the sense that you create a feeling of entitlement and expectation that, well, I am doing, the child says, for things that I'm doing this because there's going to be this, whatever you call it, is it bribery or reward or whatever? Isn't it a double-edged sword here? Who wants to answer?
I mean, I don't think it's a double-edged sword. I think if you're coming from the aspect of, oh, you're just rewarding them because they're doing the chores and not giving them any sense of, okay, nothing is done for free. You have to create that aspect of, you want them to work to earn anything. So they don't come up with the aspect of saying they're just going to get it for free because they ask. You want to say, okay, well, this is what you have to do so you can get this. So that way they understand that that level of responsibility. If they understand, if I do these things, then this is how I'm going to succeed. It's the same thing as doing homework. You know, if you want to go play, you have to do your homework. That's what I'm trying to get here. Instead of, oh, you can go play, and then do your homework later. Yes, they might do their homework after they're done playing, but it doesn't send the right reinforcement.
Yes, to follow up on Divine, to follow up on what Uzo just said, and Keisha is telling me that yes, and following what research also says about the topic, raising children very often shuts them down, and they don't make extra efforts to learn more. They become like, okay, if I do it and get the correct answer, they just tell me, yes, that was good. Good answer, good answer. But if they ask me better than if I just got 25 times 25, just shout out 625, and then they say, oh, great. Then I will not make efforts to see how other problems are solved. So praising or rewarding is sometimes good, sometimes it shuts down the kid, and the lazy kid will, of course, say, well, I got it right, so I don't need to make an extra effort. And we'll be talking more about that because it goes with further research as fixed.
Because why do I say this? I have a younger daughter who is doing very well in school. But each time she gets maybe 3.9, and a lot of times they come home with, I want this, I want that. I said, well, next semester give me 4.3, and I will do that. You know, it's a kind of, and she will come home and stay till midnight because she wants that. I don't think it's bribery, the way I look at it. I think I'm helping myself while helping the child.
Hello, Mr. Bong, are you there?
Yes.
The reason why I ask this question many times is because we have a problem in Africa of bribery and corruption. And there are certain schools of thought that believe that these things don't develop overnight. That we, in some way, as parents or as family members, have inadvertently, in our actions, promoted or actually nurtured the culture of getting people expect a reward before they can do what they're supposed to do. So that's why I was asking. So what's your take on this?
Well, you know, that culture or aspect of corruption and bribery in Africa is something that is, it's there. Now, if we want to use the word incentive, I don't think that generally the rewards that give to the kids is going to lead to or enhance the culture of corruption and bribery. Why do I say that? We're living, or some of us on this call are living in the Western world, and the parents of the kids in the Western world inculcate to their kids, or maybe sometimes even more than we do. But that does not make or manifest itself in bribery and corruption when the kids get adults or people that are working in the Western world in general. I mean, they may be some, but not comparatively with bribery and corruption like what we have in Africa. So I don't think that is the reason. However, going back and comparing, the other colleague that just spoke before me, I think he made a very important point, saying, okay, if you want this reward and you have a 3.7, now make it a 4 next time and the kid is studying, right? That is certainly a good thing. And even in general, not for everybody definitely, but in general, in Africa or in Cameroon specifically, rewards were given more so for school work, which position you were in class, which particular term or something. That is when, in general, parents or other aunties and uncles, they kind of give you something. Less so if you do housework, which in our home was expected of us. I can really count. It's hard for me to remember. I don't want to say it never happened, but I cannot remember when either my dad or my mom gave me something because I got up at 6 a.m. and washed my dad's car or swept the house or cleaned the house or did laundry, which, by the way, we're doing with hand, of course. That was just a second. But in school, when I did good, I got something like a reward. So that's the distinction that I'm noticing between Africa and here. But with what and you mentioned with enhancing or promoting the culture of corruption by rewarding kids, I don't think that there's much bearing there just because of what we're seeing in the Western world.
I have a follow-up. Sorry.
You have any?
Bonnie will come in. Let's hear from Ozone.
Okay, good.
Okay, pertaining to what Mr. Divine said and to what Mr. Bunga just said, when you're talking about corruption, I don't think, just like you said, it has to do with rewarding the child. That aspect of what we're going through back home in Africa comes down fundamentally to promoting lying. When you cannot be an honest and have any integrity, then that's where the problem of corruption comes. Because you're promoting a cult, the opposite of what that is, and then you promote that behavior. That's the difference here. But raising your children with rewarding them for working hard, studying more, or running errands is not the same thing.
Bonnie?
I think Lady Oza just said what I was about to say. Because when you look at it this way, these kids, they are getting something in return for their effort. And back thinking about corruption in Africa, they don't give you nothing in return. They only like collection agency, stealing and doing all that. You can't compare. It's like apple and orange. I don't think it has anything, in connotation.
I remember, I will have questions for all of you. I remember in Cameroon, I was there on vacation. I had gone somewhere to see how the documents for my dad's retirement benefits were going. And after the guy did what he did, here's the question I got. Who sent money for my mimbo? Who sent my mimbo day?
That is expected.
Yeah, it's expected. So that's why I asked for let's move forward. Uzu raised some important points there, especially when she emphasized a lot on hitting the child. All of us were hit in school. If we're not hit at home, back in Africa, it's a practice. Is it necessarily bad in parenting? Who wants to speak? Who wants to go first?
I don't think it's necessarily bad. I remember growing up, I was hit as a child, but it wasn't like for every little thing I did. It was for things that were severe to where I could hurt myself. So an example would be my brothers and sisters like sliding down the stairs. We build houses with concrete back home. So sliding down the stairs, if I fall and hit my head on the ground, that's a problem. It's something that my parents would have to, they would be concerned about, and have to take me to the hospital, type of thing. So if we're playing that type of behavior and running over the house and doing things that are extreme, hitting is permitted. It's what's necessary. It's where you are reinforcing that action you're doing is wrong. But to the point where you are using that as the only term of discipline and correcting behavior, I think at a certain age, when a child gets older, I think the hitting has to go away. I mean, especially when you're in secondary school or you're in college. I mean, that's not even going to be something you should do. Because at that point, that child has become a young adult. And if you want them to be a fully functional adult, actively functional in society, then more of a conversation needs to be had, and more of you building the character of that child rather than hitting them is where I'm trying to.
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask. Let me ask that Tonlefan. Yeah, I'll bring you in. So let me ask that Tonlefan Kemleke is the moderator, but on the other hand, also he works for the Montgomery County public school system here in Maryland. So you must have some, So Asam must have some experiences to share when it comes to hitting. Asam, are you listening to me?
I am listening to you, Divine. Hitting is not allowed. Yes.
That's exactly the question. What is the logic behind prohibiting hitting? What, in your view, is the logic?
It has come down to experience teachers and school administrators have come up with. Because a child may come in with a bruise or a cut or some injury, and they begin to ask what happened. It boils down to what we call in Montgomery County Public Schools child abuse. In the cultures, yes, hitting is good, but it should not hurt that child. It should not lead that child to bleed or to have continuous pain because of what you did. The door is open for people to discipline their children as long as you don't hurt the child. So it is not permissible, it is not permitted in the Montgomery County Public Schools. But as a parent, yes, as Uzo said, there is a moment to hit and a moment not to hit. Especially, you can hit the little ones because sometimes it is when you spank them that they understand what you really mean. But after a certain age, I put it at 12. After 12, hitting becomes like just a routine. The more you hit, the more heady the child gets, or the heavier the child becomes. So it is better to talk rather than to hit. Use that inner voice. The child responds better than when you shout at the child. Why were you doing like this? Stop walking across the grass. This. You do that, the child feels that you are hurting them. So if you call the child by the side and use that inner voice. Oh, Randy, you see what you did was not good. Why didn't you do it this way? You know that we're not allowed to walk on the grass. Why did you have to step on the grass? That child will understand better and will feel that somebody is paying attention to them rather than when you shout at them, you are scaring them. So there are many ways to it, but we have to continue the discussion. I think others were coming in, Divine.
Yes, I want to ask Mr. Bongo a question. And after that, it seems to me all parents would want to chime in. Mr. Bongo, the saying goes that don't point your rifle if you're not willing to pull the trigger. Now, are there times you have over-threatened a child and basically saying what you really cannot do, like back home they say, I'll kill you today. I'll break your head. I mean, how do you react to that?
Well, you know, the kind of threats that quote unquote that we do to kids here is totally different. I mean, ours go along the lines of, okay, you will be grounded, you have to time out, you have to go to your room, you will not have your games for a day, for 3 hours, for a week, or this weekend you will not go to this particular park. So those are the kind of things that we do to punish kids here. And when that has been put on the table, it is followed through. That is, if the kid did not do what they are supposed to do. the threat along the lines of what you mentioned, which we hear in Cameroon, who's speaking to do what have you, no, we don't use that here because they may not understand and they can take it literally.
Okay. And they teach them to call 911.
Exactly.
Bonnie?
Can I come in?
Yes, please, go ahead.
This Phenomenon, Joseph.
Okay.
I've been listening to all the inputs and the contributions. Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Fomunu.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I've been listening to all the very, very, very important, enriching contributions so far. I just want to say that, I think parenting and raising children depends on certain environments. The environment matters a lot, and the era. Well, when I say the era is this. I, for one, I was raised being whooped, being well whooped, because yes, I was being told by my late mom in particular that being the eldest, if I didn't get whooped, I wouldn't be successful. I wouldn't straighten out, and that if I worked hard at school in particular and cleaned the house and did the house chores, my siblings would have a greater propensity to emulate me and therefore become successful, whatever that means. But I noticed that even though I was whooped so much, my own kids, my daughter in particular, one of my daughters, I realized that even way back in Cameroon, way back in Africa, each time I scolded her, just raising my voice, she would start crying. So I would tell her that you guys are lucky in this era, because in my time, to cry, you had to be whooped and well whooped. But now...
And if you didn't cry, you were whooped.
If you didn't cry, you were whooped. If you didn't cry, you were whooped. So I find the two areas when the time that we were raised, and then in the society, and especially in the USA, it's even worse, because you raise a voice, the kids cry. But I'm talking about my daughter who was even crying in Africa. Each time I raise my voice to scold her, she'll be crying. So and then I'll tell her that you guys are so lucky. I don't know what something has gone wrong. I couldn't dare. I mean, things are different. So I'm wondering whether maybe somebody can chip in. I wonder whether is it the physiological makeup of children these days, or the environment combined, or what? Because I find it really contrasting. It's a big contrast in our era and the era when we're raising our children.
Well, there's an announcement in 2 minutes before other people come in.
Yeah.
The question.
Yeah, that's one.
A quick question from Mr. Joseph Fomono. Believe me, back in our days in Africa, if my parents get me a time out, I'll go singing, because I just go there and just have a good time wherever. We really were. The question
exactly.
Mr. Joseph,
exactly.
The question I wanted to ask you, I have 2 minutes to answer that, then there'll be an announcement, then the other parents will come in, is, now, Mr. Fomono, you have a son who is a brilliant medical doctor. How did you transition from the stage when you have to talk to the stage where you have to probably smack or spank? How did you handle this?
Well, again, the era. Let's say by the time that they were being raised, the society had become more modern, and let's say we, the parents, have become more civilized or more enlightened, whatever adjective one wants to use. But I did not whip I didn't whip my kids as the way I was whooped with my siblings. And even though I was whooped, but I noticed that my younger siblings didn't suffer the kind of whooping that underwent. So I think it's a question of being more liberal in our time. So our kids are more successful because we're more tolerant, more liberal, and more showing more love. Unlike my time when I thought my late mom didn't love me at all by whooping me too much.
Okay, it's getting interesting now. It's 4 o'clock in Washington, D.C. I wish Reverend Pam was on the line to tell us how Africaonline used to handle her, but she cannot be with us today. Probably we'll have that discussion some other time. Aston Sam Kemleke, you have an announcement, and then after that we'll go to the other parents. Over to you.
Yes, Divine. Thank you. Thank you, listeners, for coming in. Thank you, all parents who are making this debate so rich. I'm very, very happy and touched by it. And we know that September is Members' Choice Month, and this is the second of the topics suggested by one of our members. And so next Sunday, the 17th of September, we're going to tackle another topic which sounds very much like one of our health topics. So next Sunday, please, cough and respiratory pulmonary related diseases, such as asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, bronchitis, pneumonia. So we're going to look out for all our medical doctors on the forum to join us to have a very good, useful discussion next Sunday on cough and respiratory pulmonary related diseases, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, bronchitis, pneumonia, and the rest of them. So please prepare yourselves for next Sunday. Divine?
Yes, and we are already receiving signals that our one and only Dr. Brown Hilda will be saying a lot. She's specialized in, she spent many, many years in medical school to study this, so she'll be answering a lot of questions alongside members of the medical squad of Africaonline. We have a lot of medical doctors in the forum who will be taking questions from whoever has a question or making comments, clarifying certain issues. Now, we have parents on the line today. We're talking about the challenges in parenting in Africa, Europe, or the United States. Bonnie, Mr. Bongwa, or whoever has come in now, you have word. Bonnie, maybe you first.
Say it again.
Now, if you took your children to Nigeria, would they be embarrassed at what they see there?
Oh, in fact, what happened, like my first son is very fluent in Igbo language. He speaks fluent very well. And the reason, when they were little kids, I was thinking that after, maybe 5-10 years, we're going back home to Nigeria. But we are still here up here today. What happened when we got to Nigeria, they couldn't believe it. Because I have an uncle who lives in Lagos, Nigeria. He has a son, same age as my son. This guy, instead of speaking Igbo, he speaks Yoruba. That becomes a big problem. But this guy, when he got to Nigeria, he matured. The reason why people are around him so that he can know when to leave or when to run, something like that. So, in fact, he had a great time in Nigeria, and he's telling me that he want to go back to Nigeria. He loved what he saw. He can speak the language, and the kids were very nice to him at that age, but I don't know what's going to happen at this time.
Mr. Bongwa?
Yes, I'm still here. I've actually had the opportunity to take the entire family back to Cameroon. It happened, they were, like I said, my boys are 9 and 8 years old now. That was 4 years ago, so it was when we were, 3.5, 4, 5 years old. So they had a very good time, and what was different for them, or what they liked most, was getting out of the house. And really, the younger one has forgotten everything. Any memory that he has of Cameroon is just about going behind the house and chasing goats and chicken and stuff. So that's the memory that they have. But they loved it so much, going around and, my dad recipes and things like that. So if they've seen that before, it was on TV. So they were able to actually have first-hand interaction at the age of, 3, 4, 5, with interacting with chickens behind the house, or goats and pigs, things like that. And they love this so much, and that is the only thing. Aunts and uncles that they saw, what they ate, or any other place that we went to in Cameroon, we went to other cities, of course. They don't have any recollection outside of their interaction with animals. Of course,
I'm going to ask all the parents even as only Kemleke being a moderator, is also a grandpa and a parent. Brother Fomono, Bongwa, Bonnie, and whoever is on the line, and all of you, I would like all of you to answer this question. We hear overseas, what is it that you feel that the children we are raising here are missing in our African culture, and how do you mend things up? How do you handle it so that we don't grow a generation of children who are completely strangers to our African ways of life? Do they need that here? Do they need that education, and why?
This is Asangla and Kemleke. One of the things I noticed that our children here are missing or ought to learn is the fact that here we call everybody uncle or auntie. And then when we go back to Africa, or you call your father by his name. We didn't do that growing up. We've never done that. We know that our father, we call him Papa or Mama, Mami, if it is mother, and we don't call our parents by their names. And then, of course, we are also teaching our children to say uncle, auntie, and so on. And when it comes time for them to get married, they get embarrassed because they think that there is blood relationship between X, Y, and Z because we call their parents uncle and auntie and so on. So that is a problem I think we are facing, which we living in the diaspora ought to teach our children. Let the children know that you are calling this person uncle or auntie not because you have blood relations, but because of respect. I think that is how I put it.
I think we all made that mistake. We shouldn't have started that way in the first case. How will you be explaining to your child why you call this person uncle? We wouldn't have done that. But that's the culture that we were raised from, a sign of respect. What you said is creating a big problem, not only in a whole Igbo culture, because the kids we have now, most of them are at the age of getting married. Who do they know? The kids around them, who they call, just like you said, a daughter of Uncle Timothy or a daughter of Uncle, am I going to marry? You know what I mean? You cannot, there's no way you can explain it to them now. We all made that mistake. And I hope the young parents, let them work hard on that and try to let their children know that Bonnie and Divine, we are not uncles. We are not. He's from Ghana and from Nigeria. We are no relation. You don't say this is Uncle Divine. How can somebody from Cameroon be my uncle? Stuff like that. You know, so we made a book already.
Yes. Okay.
Can I suggest that this problem that has been raised is so serious. It's so serious that I think we should try to put an end to this continuance. And I suggest that we can start teaching our kids in the diaspora, born and raised in the diaspora, that when you see somebody, that they normally call uncle, they should say sir, because in our time when we were being raised, we entered sir, and yes madam, yes ma'am, yes madam to women that were not men and women that were not real uncles by blood, uncles of aunts by blood relationship. I don't know whether if we started, if we deviated from this uncle auntie business like that, it might work, because it's a serious problem which has been raised when it comes to marriage, to marriage rather. And I remember my kids were shocked to know that my friends' children were not their blood relative until later in life.
So the responsibility, yes, Mr. Fomanon, thank you for that contribution.
Yes, sir.
It's our collective responsibility to learn to tell that where you are calling uncle or auntie not because we have blood relations, but because we are just being nice. I think that's the best way to put it, but I think it's something we should all think about. Next, please.
In addition to that, these kids, they are very smart now. And when you tell them that, you know what they will do? They will open their cell phone to Google what you just said. Let's just call apple. Well, like I said, we already made that mistake. And I will encourage the young couples not to do that.
Good. Mr. Bongwa?
Yes, I was listening closely to that, and I never thought about that being an issue later on in life. And it's this is, I think, one of the most important takeaways from this discussion, because, as initially said, my kids are relatively younger than others that I've been discussing right now. And I have been making the same error and thinking that African respect, calling all of my friends aunties and uncles. That's how I tell my kids to address them. I never saw, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road that it could be a problem. So that's certainly something that we'll have to be addressing in our home.
Yes, it is very important that we handle that situation, because we may be putting barriers on the path of our children when they come to that age of getting married. They may be embarrassed to ask their cousins, because they've been calling uncles and and aunties. They say, how can I get married to my cousin? How can I get married to my niece? So we have to collectively learn how to redress or address that problem. Other issues about parenting, please. Uzo, you are still on the line, I know. I believe you still have a point to raise. Well, she's handling the technical aspect of this broadcast. And so, anybody else, please say something about other things about this parenting. How far have we solved the problem? How far should we go in praising our children, in rewarding our children? I know we've talked about that very much, but then should we, as Divine mentioned earlier, continue to give them rewards because they did something at home? Shouldn't we just say, okay, thank you for doing this, and let them know that it is a learning process?
Can I say something very, very quickly, Mr.
Sure, Mr. Muna. Wait a minute. Am I getting mixed up? For Muna.
Yeah, I don't know whether before I came online, you guys have covered this particular aspect of this discussion. In the 1970s, when I was a student at the university, somewhere in the state of Indiana, there we went to New York for the conference. Mock United Nations mock conferences by yes. So, but what shocked me was that after the conference we went to a nightclub, and the son of Rockefeller, one of America's richest, wealthiest families, was with us. As we were dancing, after a certain time, the guy told us, "Hey guys, I got to go to bed early." We said, "Why?" He said, "Because he has to work the following morning." We Africans were so shocked. We said, "This is the son of a billionaire in America, a multi-billionaire, one of the richest families in the USA. This guy was cutting his party short to go and sleep so he could get up and work." So he was surprised that he was surprised that we were stunned, or he was stunned that we were shocked.
Yeah.
That he had to go to work. Yeah. So the point I'm making is that many African parents, and I know quite a few, who have made it successfully, but let's say financially in the business world, they spoil their kids. They literally spoil their kids and inculcate this idea of that their wealth belongs to their kids. And this makes for complacency, laziness, and too much entitlement mentality. So I think that's one that we should look at when we become successful parents, because as they say, it's not what you live with the child, but it's what you live in the child.
Very important. Very important. It is not what you live with the child, but what you live in the child. That's very important, because if we teach them to be responsible, to learn to look, to earn, to deserve what they earn, I think they will work for it rather than folding their arms and waiting, oh, my daddy is going to hand it over to me and I will continue from there. Not really. So please, Mr. Bonnie, I know you are still there. Not quite. Mr. Bongwa?
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, Bonnie, go ahead.
What's the question, please?
It's not a question. We're just trying to give.
Okay. What I'm saying in a nutshell is all these problems, particularly we encountering, is due to culture conflict. And we have our own culture that we came up, And we came here, no culture, borrowed culture, or something like that. And the kids, they get confused to a point because we're trying to instill something in them, and when they go to school, somebody is trying to instill another thing in them. Sometimes they come to a point of confusion, but we just have to do the best we can, and by trying to do the best we can, by encouraging them, instilling the best we can from our own culture. But there are some good aspects of American culture too, but we have to be very careful getting from school. That's what it's just we are in a position of culture conflict. That's what it is.
And that culture conflict, we parents very often contribute to it because we do not get our children to attend our cultural festivals or to attend our cultural meetings so they learn what is going on. We let them go their own way and we go our own way, and we end up realizing that our children, many of them no longer know the language. Bonnie, I have to praise you for making sure that your children learn Igbo and Yoruba. But all of us are involved in this. We need to encourage our children to stay close to our own cultures and remember that we are visiting and that we'll go back to the continent and be laughed at if we do not speak our dialect or if we do not understand when they speak to us, because our grandmothers back home who will never come to America or go to Europe or wherever will never be able to understand the English the way you speak it. So you may end up with pidgin English as your only means of communication, but then you've lived in America from your young age to now, will not be able to even speak that pidgin English. So that's another aspect of culture being the predominant thing that is influencing our children to not fit when they go back to Africa. Mr. Bongo, I know you were trying to say something earlier.
Yes, I just wanted to bring back this angle of I said it at the beginning of this about drugs in the Western world, and this is addressing the other parents here that have kids that are a little older. Was there any particular focus on prevention or discouragement or awareness about drugs that you discuss with your kids? Some of those that have already spoken for the way that their kids are already becoming younger adults and doing good. I mean, I definitely know that this wasn't an issue. I bring this back because, one of the things, by the way, I went to university in Germany and now here in the U.S., and it's the same there or the same here with regards to drugs, especially as a student who was doing it, and it's just what we do here. And now working even all the way to the CEOs, and this topic comes up, I'm yet to meet a director, a CEO that did not, in the Western world, that did not try it at school. And anytime that discussion comes up and I say, or those of us in Africa say we've never tried that, they look at us like, that can't be true. So, has there been any emphasis for those that have older kids here? Because this is really my biggest fear. Or it's just good parenting in general without any emphasis on drugs?
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Okay. I know you're concerned about like the drug use and all of that. Particularly why I want to comment on that is because I'm a child that was brought here to this country when I was like 10 years old. So pretty much I've gone through the entire school system. So whether it be middle school, high school, college, and I've never done drugs. So I think the difference has to come with the parents. With my parents, forgetting the culture back home was not an option. Learning Igbo, they spoke Igbo to me like every day. It's a normal thing. So I can sit in a room. People might be speaking Igbo in the entire room, and I know exactly what they're talking about because I heard it every day growing up. And then also instilling that aspect of this is where you want to be. My father never went to college, but he's one of the wealthiest men ever. Just because he has a work ethic. And he basically he just made his promise to himself that all his children have to go to college. And this is how you achieve that. So the option of drug use or doing things that were not appropriate was not an option. These are things that were instilled in us every single day. So I know what your fear is. The fear is really real because you can't control the other children your kids come in contact with, but you can influence your child the best way. And I know it concerns you, but I'm a example that you can go through the system without actually doing those things, without actually being pressured into doing drugs and doing all kinds of other things. And it also has to be, you have to know the kind of kids your child is hanging around with, what kind of social groups they're attending, what type of individuals are influencing your children. Other kids, particularly why I say that is because kids only do what they see their mates doing. They tend to think it's cool
Right.
because their mates are doing it. But if you notice and you are very close with your child, you can influence that. You can be the gap between when they try such things. So I would say to you, don't be afraid of I know you're concerned about that, but if you're in your children's lives, you're constantly telling them the right things and the wrong things, and you're actively involved in what they're doing, then I think you'll be fine.
Thank you, Lady Ozo. Yes, I came here as a parent with 5 children. The youngest was 7, as I said before. All I had to do was encourage them to not accept things from people, to not accept things that they did not know what they were all about, because I already had been in the United States before going back to Cameroon and bringing them over here. So I told them that there are moments when you have pressure from your peers and they want you to try certain things. Never accept anything, never try anything, because when you do, you are the one in trouble, not the person who asked you to try that thing. So we as parents have to have those courageous conversations with our kids. The kitchen table, as they call it in this country, has to be the meeting ground for the family when we discuss the pros and cons of accepting things that we don't know or doing things that we think we're trying them because we want to get the experience. There is no experience doing drugs because it throws you off and you go offhand and you may never come back to be who you were or who you intended to be. So it is up to we parents, to all of us parents, to encourage our children to be who they are, to know themselves, and to stick to their little cultures that they brought with them. Or if they are born here, we instill in them that culture in the home. Please don't accept things from people because they are your classmates. Somebody else, please, to say something. I thought something. No taker. Yes.
The two of you have exhausted that particular aspect so comprehensively that we are just we're more than satisfied. You and Miss Ozo. You and Miss Ozo.
Thank you so much. Yes. That being said, while you put your thoughts together for the rounding up moment, we have 6 minutes to go. Let me just say that there are a few news items which we thought we will not be able to bring them up because we had such a useful discussion. Over in Kenya, the elections, the court there decided to annul the results of the previous election, and new elections will be held on the 17th of October. Now the opposition candidate, that is Raila Odinga, is asking his supporters to fund his campaign ahead of the elections coming up on the 17th. Mr. Odinga's political fortunes were revived when the Supreme Court decided to ask that the elections go into a rerun. So Mr. Odinga has told the media that he hopes that his supporters will give him the necessary monies to be able to bring him up to the task, because the elections in the next month or so will be more challenging than the first round was. He hopes that the supporters will give him that push and be able to put him above the winning point next time around. Well, incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta is continuing to campaign, hoping that he will, as they say, continue to be the president after the rerun on October 17th. Still in Kenya, like in Cameroon, the Confederation of African Football CAF will begin an inspection visit to Kenya on Monday. That is coming that's tomorrow, actually, ahead of next year's African Nations Championship. That is the games that are played in between the African Nations Cups, the scheduled years. So the Confederation is sending a delegation to be sure that Kenya will be ready and prepared to host the games. You know, they were in Cameroon recently, and a normalization committee was set up last Wednesday. I don't have the list of names, but I know that my good friend Jomo Kevin is a member of that normalization committee to make Fecafoot a politically exempt committee that works for football and not for political interest. So that is the situation about soccer and what they call it soccer over here. We call it football. That is the news from the continent. And this other one, there is a planned U.S.-Africa Energy Summit that was supposed to hold in, I think, Minnesota, has been called up because all members coming from the continent to participate in this conference were refused visas by the U.S. government. So it is a problem that the thing that the Trump government, the Trump administration is denying this for political and religious and the no travel reasons. And they're begging, not begging, they are doing what they can to see if that decision not to grant visas to these people traveling for an energy conference in the United States is rescinded. That is the topic that I got on this afternoon. And of course, the other news item is that Nigeria's former president, General Obasanjo, is asking the president of Togo, for Nyasimbe, to retire because after 12 years as president and 38 years by his father, whom he succeeded, he is still staying in power, and the people have been protesting, asking him to go because they say Nyasimbe IV must go. It is time for you to end your family's reign on this country for the past 50 years. So General Obasanjo, who has been an election observer in that country before, thinks that, yes, for Nyasimbe should respect the will of the people and leave. Those are the items I thought. Yes. You say something?
I don't want to say that. I hope the general tells other heads of state that have been around for decades to go to live.
I hope so. We look forward to that. Mr. Fomona, now that you're on, your last word on the parenting, the challenge for parents in Africa and in the diaspora.
In Africa, they see whoop, even though less whooping than before. It's still necessary. And in the diaspora, the threat, just the mere threat of whooping can straighten out the children, but show more love. Use the carrot and stick method. Whether you are here or in Africa, the carrot and stick method, they work. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Be there with us. You have the last thought.
The editorial team for bringing up this topic. Like I said, it is the one and most important jobs that we have in our lives as parents, and we can't talk about this we can always talk about this, and it's still going to be beneficial. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Bonnie, are you still with us? Okay, Bonnie is gone. He didn't share his last thoughts with us. Lady Uzo, I know you've been taking care of the technical aspect. Are you there to give your concluding remarks?
Sure. My concluding remarks just basically is, parenting is still the first step for the child's development. So you have to look at what kind of child are you going to be putting out into the world. So the spanking is still necessary, but not always.
Thank you so much. And we missed our Reverend Pam. She'll be on the show next week. And I want just to conclude by saying that it has been so wonderful listening to all of us on this program this Sunday. Parenting is a challenge. As I said in the reflection, it is a classroom it is an education program without a curriculum, without a textbook. We do it as we go. And of course, please, parents, be there for your children. Learn to have the courageous conversations with them, because if you don't show them the way, they will learn from Google or from social media and go the wrong way. Thank you all so much. Lady Uzo put us on the line by streaming the program. Divine Chamakon was with us, co-anchoring. My name is Asonglefen Kemleke. And at 4:30 Washington, D.C. time, we say thank you all so much and see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye.